Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Continuing Hawker Typhoon Week, we've got another frog kit. This is a later issue from their series. This particular one is a boxing from 1974. Kit code is F389. This is based off the original mold from 1959, which we saw earlier in Typhoon Week. But it's got some updated parts to it that were first done in 1968. Namely, they got rid of all the engraved markings that were part of the original issue of the kit. A couple of little changes that were done as well, but that's the main thing, trying to kind of freshen this up, bring it more up to date. Just before they did a completely whole new mold for the Typhoon. And so a little bit more history on the Typhoon for the week. We'll talk about the weapons that the Typhoon utilized. So originally it was designed as an all-machine gun fighter. It was supposed to have 12 .303 Brownings with 500 rounds per gun. The difference between the Typhoon Mark 1A and a Mark 1B was the Mark 1A had the 303s, and the Mark 1B had the 20mm cannons. Sidney Cam, anticipating the development of the aircraft with cannon, made the thicker wing on the Typhoon in order to accommodate those cannons. Maybe a little thicker than he really needed to, because they were able to accommodate the same 4 cannons in the Hawker Tempest with a much thinner wing. But, this is the first time, one of the first times that they were putting such large cannon in a wing, so he designed it with a lot of room to spare, I guess. So the 20mm cannon version utilized Hispano Mark IIs with 140 rounds per gun. In early 43, they were able to start putting some stores on the wing. So initially they started out with drop tanks. They initially started out with bombs. So in October 42, they put racks on the wing for, at first, 500-pound bombs. And then later in 43, they were able to carry 1,000-pound bombs. The Typhoons toting bombs were nicknamed Bombfoons. And then a little bit later, as I mentioned before, in early 43, they were able to start plumbing it in order to be able to carry drop tanks. So they carried a 45 Imperial gallon drop tank on each wing, which is equivalent to 200 liters for today's metric boys, and 45 U.S. gallons. So that was able to increase the range on the Typhoon from approximately 690 miles all the way out to 1,090 miles. So it gave it a lot more reach to be able to attack targets deeper into France, most of the Low Countries as well, up to about the borders of Germany. Then in October of 43, they started fitting racks for rockets. The Typhoon was carrying 8 rockets. The rails were called Mark I rails. The rockets were RP-3 rockets. The Typhoons typically carried in the ground support roll, ground attack roll, 60-pound high explosive or semi-armor piercing warheads on those. There are a few other RP-3s, some with fully armor piercing ones. Those were usually being used on shipping targets. So if the Typhoon was going out to attack shipping, they may have added the armor piercing ones, but more often than not, you see it with these larger 60-pound high explosive warheads on those. Later in 44, they started experimenting with doubling up the rockets. They would put 2 on each rail, kind of piggybacked on there. That was starting to get utilized in the Normandy campaign. You don't often see a full set of rockets doubled up. Sometimes you'll see the inner 2 rails with a double up, and then the outer two with just a single. There was also a combination where they would put the drop tanks on it and then 2 rocket rails outside of the drop tank, so you get the combination of the extended range, but still be able to carry a total of 4 rockets. A little bit later, at the end of 44 in December, they came out with the Mark III rails, which were made out of aluminum instead of steel, and that basically cut the weight in half, down to 240 pounds for the full set of rails. And that's where you start seeing the doubling up on all the rockets occurring at that point. So it's a little bit of a history on the weapons on it. So let's take a look at the kit we got here today. So we've got the Frog. As I said, this is a 74 issue, so we've got completely different artwork than had been done before. Still, surprisingly for a 70s kit, the tank on fire, rockets being fired. Usually by these early 70s kits, a lot of that has gone away to a more kind of tranquil look in the box art. And shortly after this is when a lot of the kits started going to photographs. So this is kind of like the last gasp of the early style box art. You got your Frog logo here. 72nd scale. This is some grease pencil or marker or something like that. It looks like it was $1.40, maybe the price of the kit at one point. On the side here, we've got all the information in different languages. Interesting to designate the country. They're using the country's aircraft insignia for that. So 33 parts, guns and rockets, rotatable wheels and propellers, decal sheet, display stand, and wingspan of 7 inches. The opposite side, big giant ad for their sky base. So this was you can see a base that would swivel around. You could angle the aircraft in different poses. You could mount it on the wall. So nice big ad for it. This is pre-cellophane or cellophane wrapping, so it's still taped together. Bottom of the box has got a couple of 3 views of the 2 different marking schemes that they're giving you. One for Wing Commander Davidson and one for a 245 squadron. They do mention that it requires cement paint, and this is when Rovex was owning Frog. On the end, we've got a repetition of the top box art, kit code number, and similar on the other side. Let's look inside and see what we got. So first thing, we've got a much larger instruction sheet than what we'd seen in the earlier kit. All the different languages of basic assembly. Follow the directions. Some special instructions, call outs for the codes, and your step-by-step. So, you've got propeller assembly, a little bit more of a complex assembly than you see on a lot of these smaller kits like this. Landing gear, and you're using a hot knife to be able to melt the axle to keep the wheels on. And then here's the assembly of the fuselage. You have separate exhaust stacks to go through the fuselage. And there's your wings, separate cannons. Putting the wings on the fuselage, and then your finishing touches. So as you can kind of see here, it does have a molded closed gear doors on the bottom of the wing. So if you are putting the gear on, it's going to go in these little slots. And then rockets, your canopy, and a little card here, a little thing here for spare parts. So if you're missing a part, you could send in what you're missing. And your back side of the instructions has information about how to put together your sky base, a bunch of modeling tips, and finally a little bit of information about the Typhoon. It's a much more thorough instruction sheet than the previous issue of the kit. And let's take a look at the decals. It did come with a little cover sheet on them originally. Decals have not yellowed, which is pretty good. Registration looks pretty good as well too, which was nice. So the markings that they're giving you here, initially kind of look like they're pretty accurate, but they're actually not. The one for JP486, this one here, which is supposed to be matched up with the RD, which is for the Wing Commander, RTP Davidson. He's the Wing Commander of 143 Wing. Robert Tremengy Pillsbury Davidson was born in 1917 in Vancouver. He joined the RAF in 1937. Flew all kinds of different aircraft all over the world. And one thing they do get right with this is the kill markings. He's one of the few guys who had kills against all the major Axis powers. A couple of German, a couple of Italian, and a couple of Japanese. So he had those before he became the wing commander for the Typhoon wing. And he did carry those markings on his aircraft. But this RD coded one, as wing commanders, you put your initials on the side of your aircraft. That actually was not JP486, but it was actually, where did I put it? Actually a different aircraft, MN518. And, the paint job is still pretty much the same, just different serial number on it. He flew that one when he took over as the wing commander, starting in April, flew it through May of 44 until he got shot down. He was flying another aircraft from 143rd Wing. His assigned aircraft needed maintenance. So on the day he was shot down, he was actually flying a 438 Squadron aircraft, serial numbered MM957, with the code of F3-N. When he was shot down, he ended up joining the French underground and was involved in some of their underground activities all the way up until 5 of September, when he was the area that underground was operating finally became under Allied control, and he got repatriated back into Allied hands. Because of his connection with the French underground, he was not allowed to fly combat missions in case he ever got shot down again. He could be tortured, interrogated, whatever, to cough up information. So as what would happen with most guys who ended up getting out through the underground, he got transferred to a different area. He became wing commander for a new squadron of Tempests that were going to be going as part of Tiger Force to go fight the Japanese. But the war ended before he could get involved with that. So the aircraft that was coded RD, the MN518, was actually passed on to the follow-up wing commander who replaced him, a gentleman by the name of MT Judd, and he coded his aircraft, of course, MJ, and I believe that ended up serving out the rest of the war with him. I was not able to find any information about the final disposition of the aircraft, so I'm going to assume that it finished the war. Incidentally, 143rd Wing was in our Royal Canadian Air Force wing made up of 438, 439, and 440 squadrons. So the other marking on here, MRK, which has shown up on some other kits over the years as well. They're showing it as being serial number JP611 with 121 wing. But in actuality, this aircraft was assigned to, where was it? Now I've lost it. Was assigned to number 1 squadron, and that aircraft crashed sometime in I believe late 43, so wouldn't have matched up time wise for it to have been assigned to 245 squadron flying out of Normandy if it had already been crashed and written off with number 1 squadron. And the actual the JP486 that was erroneously given to the Davidson one, that was actually an aircraft that was assigned to 198 squadron. 198 squadron used the code TP. It's unknown the individual aircraft coding for that particular aircraft, but it was flown by a gentleman by the name of Flight Lieutenant Robert Henry Dugo, Deugo, also with the RCAF. On 20th of July 1943, he was flying on a rhubarb over Belgium. They were attacking a train. He got shot down by flak from the train and was killed instantly at the age of 21. So that's the actual history of the true JP486. So some of the aftermarket decals that are out there have kind of corrected some of this stuff, but Frog just didn't get it quite right at the time. So do have some images of these aircraft, so take a look at those right now. Okay, so let's take a look at the kit itself. Start with the fuselage halves as you usually do. Coming from the really old mold, most of the parts, or the major parts, are loose, with only one tree of small parts. So here's the fuselage. As you can see, the engraved markings are all gone, along with all the other recessed panel lines, and they've been replaced by fairly fine raised ones with some of the I think they're called DZU fasteners for the front panels, so it gives a little bit more of a cleaner look. The rear fuselage of the Typhoon was a semi-monocoque flush riveted, so it's kind of appropriate to not have much riveting on there. But you can still see it's still the same basic kit from before. Same thing with the wings. The engraved lines are gone, along with the engraved markings. So to kind of give you a comparison, I have the old Frog kit here. So we can look at your fuselage halves. You can see they still, fit together. It's basically the same part, but you can see the big difference in the way that they're made. So you've got the engraved markings and panel lines being replaced by no markings and raised panel lines. And then on the wing, same thing. All of the engraved lines have been replaced by raised. They did add fuel filler caps too, which is nice. Okay, so again, similar kit, so won't go into a whole lot more detail on it. So that's your fuselage. You've got your wings. And as mentioned before, you've got the molded on gear doors in the up position with slots to be able to put the gears in. Landing gear, you've got your one-piece tail. Same thing again, it's got raised panel lining now. Get the sky base out of the way. So here's your propeller, same thing as before. Other wing. Here's your hub. And here's the tree with the smaller parts. These are, I believe, identical to the older kit. You do get a lot more flash on them than you had before. By this time, these molds were, what, 15, 20 years old now. So, not quite as crisp as the earlier ones. There you have it. Same problem with the rockets that you see with most kits, that the rockets are lined up incorrectly with the rails, so they wouldn't actually shoot off the rail. It's one of the gear doors. And the canopy. Looks like whoever had this kit before took this one and then made a vacuum form canopy out of it. It fits perfectly on top. So you can see, if you did want to use the kit one, it does have the raised lines on it, so it does make for a little easier painting. Or you could make yourself a vacuum form kit or vacuum form canopy. Panel lines, or the framing lines, not panel lines, framing lines do start getting thicker though if you just did it straight off of this. So there's that. And then finally, let's take a look at the sky base. So this is their new stand. Feels like very different kind of plastic than the main kit. And you got your different parts to be able to mount it. Your little thing there to stick it on a wall if you want and have it stick out. And then here's the part that would swivel, pop onto there, and then that slots into the bottom of the aircraft. So there you go. If you're looking to build a bubble canopy version, this is probably the better choice if you want to go with frog. Having a little bit nicer finish without the engraved markings to deal with. They only issued this a couple of times. One is a bag kit, the original remolding of it in 68, and then this version here in 74. Then they came out with the new mold shortly after this, which went to the car door canopy. So if you're looking for the earlier mark of Typhoon, or the earlier version of the production of the Typhoon, the later kit would be the better choice if you want to stick with Frog. Both of these kits were reissued a bunch of times, covered all of that in the earlier Frog kit review. So if you want to know more about other issues of this kit, it was being issued as late as the 2000s. So there's plenty of these out there if you are interested in building a Frog Typhoon. So that's it for today. There's going to be one more episode for Typhoon Week. That'll be coming up shortly. Saving the best for last, I think. And thanks for watching.